Hey folks, welcome back to the Wikipedia world, and I am Abhinay Gupta. And today again we will be continuing with the interpretation of statute, deeds and documents. Right? In the previous lectures we have covered a lot of rules over there. Most of the primary rules have been completed. We are left with the last one, which is the rule of EJUSDEM GENRIS. Right? And from here the rules with those typical names they start, right? So you need not be scared of it, because these rules are actually the easier and the shorter rules. Right? We won't take a long time on this rule because you don't have a lot of text to deal with. Right? So the major rules on which you were asked questions and that contained a lot of text have already been completed. Right? So the major chunk of your syllabus in this chapter is over already, and we are left with just 4 new rules, 4 other rules, that is, one is primary and the other 3 are secondary, right? And then we move on to the next part of this chapter. Okay, and those of you who have not been with me throughout the previous classes, please go back, watch those videos and then come back to this, right? Because somewhere or the other we are continuing the classes, right? So do not break the flow. It will be difficult for you to understand. Okay with that? So today we deal with the rule of EJUSDEM GENRIS. And while I was giving you the introduction, right, over there I have already explained, or I have already given you a gist of what EJUSDEM GENRIS is. Right? So EJUSDEM GENRIS means, what do you conclude for the general words? Right? GENRIS, it is general. So if there are certain specific words and then it is followed by certain general words, then how do you construe that general word? You cannot say that, okay, if it says and whatever they deem fit, does not mean exactly whatever they deem fit. Right? This rule says that whatever they deem fit will be in context of the specific words that we have already used. Right? Like we have seen in various places in the Act, right, in the Companies Act or other Act, that when you give power to somebody, right, then you say, okay, power number A, power number B, power number C, power number D, power number E, and then the last power is generally a general power, right? That anything else that the court may deem fit, anything else that the director may deem fit, or anything else that the collector may deem fit, right? That is how it is always concluded. Even for the winding up, right, at the end you say other just and equitable grounds. So these are basically those general terms that are used at the end of the specific terms, right? Because before that you have been given few rules or few observations, tuck bullet points, right? Those are specific, that okay, if this happens you take over, if this happens you take over, if this happens you take over, and then you say if something else happens again you take over. So that something else will generally be seen in context of the bullet or the specific things that have already been discussed, right? That has already been specified. So whenever you use those general terminologies, the general statements, the general words, those general words will always be referred in terms of those specific words or statements that have been mentioned just prior to them. Right? We'll give you a more insight on this once we commence with the explanation of the entire rule. Okay with that? So you know, whenever we start with the rule, first thing we do basically is the applicability of the rule. So if we see the applicability of EJUSDEM GENRIS, then the following point on the screen, right, would be applicable. So first I would read out what's on the screen and then we'll go on to explain them. The first thing says that a series of specific words or class of category. So that means that if you want to apply this rule, the first and the foremost criteria is that there must exist certain specific words, right? Otherwise, to what do you relate? If you only have general words, what do you relate to? As I've already told you, that a general word that is concluding, right, that is included at the end, will always be referred, right, in context of the specific words that have been used before that. When I say it will always be referred, does not mean that in general whenever you get something like that you refer it. No. Will always be referred if you are using the rule of EJUSDEM GENRIS. That means if the rule is not applicable at any point of time, right, then the last general word, right, that has been included will not necessarily be forming a part of all the specific words that have been specified before that. right? It will not be construed in context of those specific words, right? And one more important thing that we see in the first line is that the words of a class or category, that means that specific words, right, that have been used prior to the general words, all those words, right, they should be related to each other. Either they should depict a class, a category, or a genre, right? But they should all be talking on the same platform, on the same basis, right? Otherwise, if they are going in so many various directions, then what direction will the general word take, right? So if you want the general word to be referred in context with the specific words, then it is very important that those specific words are focusing on the same direction, right? They are talking on the parallel ground. Okay. In the first line we have already discussed two conditions. The second one after that is the general word must follow. That means it is not enough that you have those specific words and you say, okay, all other things are included over there. No. If there are 4 specific words that have been included, that means you will always consider only this 4. But if the legislature, while framing the statute, includes a general word at the end, right, then you may say that, okay, all other things that are related to this specific words, right, that are talking in the same direction, that are talking on the same platform, will also be considered to be a part of this. But if that general word is not included, then the list of specific words will be the exhaustive list, right? Are you getting what I mean to say? If you're not, then you will be cleared up a little more when we go ahead with the examples, right? When I talk to you with examples, you will get this thing into your head, right? So even if it's a bouncer for you at this point of time, don't be scared, right? Just stay with me throughout the class, and at the end you would conclude that yes, you are okay with the rule, right? And that is if you are yet not okay, but most of you should have been okay by now, right? You should have understood what I mean to say. Then again, consider a situation, right, that you have the statute. In the statute, the legislature has used a specific word, has used few specific words, and then attached a general word at the end, right? That means, okay, we understood that the general word will always contain those words, or will always refer to those things or words or statements that are parallel to the specific words. But what if the specific words are the only words in that particular genre? If you don't have a general word, if you don't have any other specific word remaining, that means if they exhaust the entire category, then what do? Right? If you're talking about the solar system and we say it is Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, etc. What does that etc. mean? We don't have any other planet over there, right? Yeah, recently the Pluto is not considered to be a planet, and a new planet has come in. Forget about that, right? I was just taking an example. That if the specific words, they exhaust the entire category, right? All the planets have been exhausted. The planet in the solar system I'm talking about, right? They have been exhausted. Then what is the meaning of etc. over there? Or if they say, and all the other planets in the solar system, what do we do with that? We don't have any other planet over there, right? So over there, the rule of EJUSDEM GENRIS will not be applicable, right? Because you don't have anything to construe over there. You don't have anything to deem over there. Right with it? Further, you must understand that there is nothing to show that a wider sense was intended. Right? Suppose if the general word that is accompanying the specific words, if it says, right, or if the statement has certain words whose meaning takes you beyond, right? That means it already says that we will although include everything in this list, right, and things related, but we'll also go beyond to see other things as well. Right? So if the language specifies something like that, or if the language means something like that, then the rule of EJUSDEM GENRIS cannot be applied. Why? Because if you apply this rule, then you will only be restricted to those words or those statements that go in line with the specific words or statements. Right? But what about the rest? Because that general word directly, if you apply the rule of literal interpretation, you will understand that yeah, they are depicting that they would include other things as well. And if you apply the rule of EJUSDEM GENRIS over there, then your entire objective, goes for a toss. Right? So do you understand when the rule of EJUSDEM GENRIS will be used? First condition, there should be specific words. Second, it should be accompanied by general word. Those specific words should be of the same category, class or genre. Right? They should not exhaust the entire list, and the general word should not depict that yes, they mean something beyond. Right? In short, these are the 5 points that you need to remember for the applicability of EJUSDEM GENRIS. Clear? Any doubt, any comment? As I always say, please feel free to use the comment box below. Right? Now we have seen the applicability. Now let us discuss with examples, right, what is the meaning of EJUSDEM GENRIS. Right? So now we move on to the meaning, and in short, just understand that in English, EJUSDEM GENRIS means the same class or species. Right? If you translated it into English, you get the meaning the same class or species. This is the appropriate meaning. So whenever you get to write an answer about this rule, right, always specify this as the first line, that the rule of EJUSDEM GENRIS basically depicts, or the word EJUSDEM GENRIS means the same class or species. And then again, yeah, that this rule will be applicable if the rule of literal interpretation fails, and then the other things, right? You go on with that. I'll tell you how to write the answers at the end of the lecture, at the end of the chapter actually. So we were discussing about the meaning. Let us not be deviated from that. Let's come back to the meaning. So this rule in short, in one-liner says, right, that the general words that are following certain specific words, right, those general words should be construed with reference to those specific words that are preceding them. Right? That is what I have been explaining so far. That is the one-liner meaning of the entire rule. And always remember, right, the examples that I use are not cooked up always. Yeah, those planets and things, those were cooked up. But basically what I try is to give you even the examples from the text of the institute. Right? Why? Because I'm not referring to any books, any specific book, right? There are a mixture of a lot of books that I refer to, that I have notes prepared from. So what I do is I would love to take up examples from your institute study materials. Right? What will that benefit you is that if you want to refer any book along with my classes, right, then the institute's study material would be the best thing for you to go ahead with. Or if you go on to read any other book, right, so the teachers or the authors who are trying to interpret and copy paste material from the institute material, right, they will have the same kinds of examples. So when you are reading those examples, right, everything will click into your mind. Right? Because everything that you hear in the class today, right, will definitely go and seep into your unconscious brain, right, and it is difficult to bring it out from there. But when you get a link, when you listen to that example, hey, remember this example was told in the class, and then everything comes out automatically. That is why I don't want to take you to other examples like the planets and stuff. Okay, sometimes I do, because that is important to explain the things, right, but generally what examples I take are also from the text. Right? And there's a purpose for that. I can take up any example. There are hundreds of examples for this. There are hundreds and thousands and millions of places where you must also have seen the use of the word etc. or other things, or just an equitable and same as the rest. Right? These words have been used a lot of time. I could take up any example. I'm taking the example that are given in the text. Right? So again, to explain it, I would take an example, right? I'll take an illustration that suppose is a statement, right? At the end of the statement it says television, music system or any other electronic item. So television and music system over here are the specific word that we have been talking about. Right? And when they say and any other electronic device, then the electronic device is a general word. There are a lot of electronic devices, right? A general word given to them is electronic devices. Television is an electronic device. Music system is an electronic device. Even your PS3, PS4 are electronic devices. Your laptops, your mobile phones, your desktops, your projectors, all of these things are electronic devices. So the example that I have taken, right, television, music system or any other electronic item. In that example, what you do is try and apply the rules of applicability that I have just taught you. Number one, that there should be specific words. So television and music system, two specific words, right? and they should form a class or a category of the genre, so they are into the same class, the electronic devices, right? General words must follow, the third point. So as I say, and any other electronic device, then that is a general word, right? Next we have specific words should not exhaust the whole category. So do you think there are just 2 electronic devices available with you? There are n number of electronic devices available with you, right? So television and music system, they are not exhausting the category also. And when the general word has already says and any other electronic device, that means it does not intend to go beyond electronic devices. So all your 5 points are fulfilled over there with one simple example of 7-8 words, right? So this is the meaning of EJUSDEM GENRIS. That now, if we are talking about mobile phone, if we are talking about printers, laptops, desktops, projectors, cameras, anything that we are talking about, right? All these things will be included in electronic devices and will be construed accordingly, right? But then again, right, because this is the statute, so we cannot say anything that works on electronics will be included over here. We're talking about television, we're talking about music system, laptops, desktops. These things obviously they are related things, right? They all have those displays, they all have those sounds and everything, right? They all have screens, they all have sound, like the music system, like the television, right? They're all used for recreational purposes also. But everything that works on the electricity or that works on battery will not be considered to be electronic device necessarily in this context, if they are not similar to the television and the music system. Like for example, the electronic wristwatch, right? That is not any other electronic item, because although it is an electronic device, right, it works on battery, it is battery operated, but the features of the electronic wristwatch is not similar to the features of the desktop, laptop, your projectors, your television, your music system, right? It is not similar to that. It is a different genre altogether, right? So we will not include it. Okay, so these are specific things that you have to be very careful. Although you don't have to be careful because you are not a judge and you do not have to take decision based on that, right? And this was just a small example, but the judges, they have to look from all various aspects, right? They have to bring out the characteristics on the specific words and match the characteristics to construe the general words, right? Because a case depends on their decision, so they have to be very particular about things, right? But whereas we can take it lightly, and for your examination, if you give an example, you plot it down, nothing else is required. No practical use of EJUSDEM GENRIS is required for your examination purpose, right? And since you are not a judge, you are chartered accountants and you are going to read documents and deeds, so the words and the text that is being used in the documents and deeds will already be familiar for you, right? So you will not be facing a lot of problem. You will not get unique cases, right? Judges may get any kind of cases, but you will get specific genre of those documents and deeds, right? So all the words that are used over there are something that you will see over and over again and again and again. So there is less probability for you to make mistake over there for application of the rule. Okay? Now I hope you are clear with the meaning of the rule of EJUSDEM GENRIS. If yes, then let's move ahead with the last topic of this rule, which is the non-applicability. Right? What are the situations when the rule will not be applicable? Obviously, where the applicability fails, that is one thing, that there are no specific words, there is no general word, specific word exhausts the entire category, the general word talks about something beyond, right? If you get something exactly opposite to your applicability, then that is non-applicability for sure, right? And that is needless and regardless to be mentioned over here. That is a common sense that you have and you can apply it, right? But still there are certain things that I think is important to mention over here for discussion point of view, right? So let us take those things up. So if we talk about non-applicability, the first is the specific word exhausts the whole category that we said, right? So we'll have to discuss about this. This exactly refers to the example I had taken, right? But now you will also have to understand what is the category that you are dealing about, right? You'll have to go with the characteristics to understand what category it is, unless and until it is specifically mentioned that yeah, they belong to this category and they exhaust it, right? That is why this point is taken up to understand, because we have seen, right, television, music system and the other electronic system. Over there, if we have mentioned the rest also, how do you know whether the list is exhausted? Right? Because you know that other electronic devices like the wristwatch will not be included because it has a different characteristic. So it is important for you to identify how do you know that the list is exhausted, right? Because yeah, in case of these specific things like solar system and other things where you have very limited options, like if we talk about mobile brands, right, that are international brands moving entering into your market, then yes, you have those Samsung, LG, then the Motorola, Apple, and there are few more, Sony Ericsson and stuff, and then you come to an end. So over there, if you go ahead and you include a lot of information over there, then you may exhaust a list at some point of time, right? But again, the question is, are you also considering the tablets over there? Are you also considering the other devices prepared by those company over there, or no? Are you considering any company which is dealing in something else, right? Like Usha, but still Usha came up with a phone last year, like few years back. So will you consider Usha to be a mobile company? So these are the questions of discussion, right? So if there are such disputes coming up, then the rule will not be applicable over there. Okay with it? Next point, the discretion of the court. Yes, over here again I'll take an example, I'll share an example with you. Right? Recently we have completed the chapter of winding up. If somebody is following my class since the beginning, then you know that yeah, right before this chapter we have covered the chapter of winding up, and we covered it in detail. We have had a lot of lectures on that, right? I think more than 30 lectures over there, right? But winding up, that chapter was completed in crisp detail. Everything was taught over there. So if you remember, then there were 6 grounds of winding up. I'm talking to the students who have been attending my class since the beginning. So there have been 6 grounds of winding up, right? Where you appeal to the court for winding up, application for winding up. Remember, where the registrar could go, the company could go, they could pass a resolution, the members could pass a resolution, no statutory meeting. You remember those things? There were 6 points over there. So what was the 6th point at the end? The 6th point was any other just and equitable ground, right? So you have 5 specific categories over there where you could appeal, where they passed a resolution in the meeting of the shareholders, they did not commence the business or suspended the business for a year, right? They did not fulfill they did not submit the statutory records, they did not hold the statutory meeting, the number of members fall below the statutory minimum and those things. So what do you think? Those were specific tasks, specific conditions mentioned over there, right? And then at the last you have some general words. So those things, they represent a genre, right? They are related to the company, functioning of a company. That is a genre, right? And that is the legality between it, that yes, you have to do it. The statutory dues, the minimum numbers, these are all the requirement of the statute. So do you think that other just and equitable ground will also refer to any problem that you create with the statute? The answer is no. The court said, right, in a case in Davis and Company Limited versus Bunswick, right? But that is not an important case study for you. So in that case, the court says that no, we will not apply the rule of EJUSDEM GENRIS because the last point, A, B, C, D, F, the F point, right? The F point where it says other just and equitable ground will not necessarily relate to the above 5 grounds. It can be any just and equitable ground, right? So if at any point of time the court denies, then you will not apply the rule of EJUSDEM GENRIS. So applying or not applying this rule will always depend upon the discretion of the court. That is one other place of non-applicability, right? Where it is not applicable, the rule becomes non-applicable. And the last point is if specific words follow general words. That means it's a reverse case, right? When you say we're talking about all the planets in the solar system, and then you say Mercury, Earth, Mars, Venus, right? Then that means you're talking about only those planets, man. You're not talking about Neptune and Saturn, right? So if there are, because it says solar system, it says the planets in the solar system, and then they specify the 4 of them, that means they have eliminated the rest of them. They're talking about just the 4 of them. So if it's a reverse situation where the general words are preceding the specific words, or you may say the specific words are following the general words, then the rule of EJUSDEM GENRIS will not apply. So don't say over there, no, they use the word solar planets in the solar system, so I will construe it to be all the planets over there. You are wrong. Why? Because they have also specified 4 planets over there. Are you getting the point? So these are the other 3 places of non-applicability, along with the reversal of the applicability, right, which was already there. Right, now there were some other examples given in the study material while I was flipping through it. So it says that if the statute uses certain words, right, like oxen, bull, goat, cow, buffalo, sheep, horse, etc., then the word etc. over here, right, which is a general word accompanying the specific word or following the specific words, will also include the other animals in the same category. Now what is the category over here? The category over here is the category of domestic animals. It is not the wild animals, right? We're not talking about lion, tiger and anything like that. We are talking about all the domestic animals. Oxen, bull, goat, cow, buffalo, sheep, horse, right? You see them, right? People, they own them. So they are all domestic animals. So now you have to be very specific that, okay, if over here if we say etc. does not mean that all the animals. Animal is also a category, right? But that's a wider than the general category. But a little less wider or a more specific general category would be domestic animals, right? But again, what you need to go ahead and understand is that they are talking about the domestic animals with 4 legs. That means cock, hen, peacock, all these things will again not be included, although they are domestic, right? So here we are seeing the characteristics and then analyzing what it is. So it does not include all the domestic animals also. And remember, this rule will not apply where the general words are given their natural and ordinary meaning, right? So with this, we come to an end of this rule, and I hope now you will not forget the word EJUSDEM GENRIS, right? And you know that GENRIS means general, and you remember, you will be able to connect, right? Are you comfortable with the rule now? Are you comfortable with the name, comfortable with the explanation? I hope yes. Right? Do share your experiences also in the comment box below. Okay? So with that, we come to an end of this lecture. We come to the end of this rule. And stay tuned, because in the upcoming lectures, we are going to shift to the secondary rules of interpretation with those typical names, right? So I'll see you guys in the next lecture. Until then, it is Abhinay Gupta signing off. Thank you and bye-bye.